Thank you for everybody for joining this webinar today with myself, Saurabh Madan from MoEngage, and some esteemed guests and panelists. December 9th today, we are doing this live webinar about banking and fintech industry. And today this forum is going to discuss a specific topic, achieving customer-centric digital transformation. I will go through a brief introduction on who's on this panel. I'll be the host today. We've received some questions already from some participants who are on the call, and I'll try and navigate these questions through the people who have joined us today. So to start off with, from a fintech and banking industry perspective, over the past few years, digital technologies have obviously transformed banking, finance industry, and digital platforms have allowed banking, finance, etc. To reach out to more customers through more channels, which were not available 10 years ago. WhatsApp, as an example, this channel wasn't available from a business perspective, and now it's available. And we'll try and analyze today how does it impact the future by talking to some experts who are on the call today. We'll try and explore three key topics: how leading banks are digitizing their customer engagement strategy and systems, best practices to bridge data silos and deliver seamless customer experience, and the third one, how machine learning is enabling automation and deeper customer insights. And with the experts on the panel, I think we'll have some really good insights coming in. So who do I have on the panel today? Let me just do a brief introduction. We have Sheila Paul joining us from Manila. Sheila is currently the Chief Marketing Officer at Home Credit, which is one of the leading fintech companies in the Philippines, and also has presence in other countries in Southeast Asia. Prior to this, Sheila was Vice President Marketing at a company called Hook, which is an OTT company. Thank you for joining us, Sheila.
Thank you for inviting me, Saurabh, and nice to see everyone on the panel, and looking forward to this discussion today.
Same here, absolutely. Along with Sheila, we have Amar Ibrahim joining us from Jakarta. Amar currently works as Vice President of Marketing for Astra Digital, which is a part of the large Astra group in Indonesia. Hi, Amar, thank you for joining as well.
Hi, Saurabh. Thank you very much for inviting us. Lucky to be here and looking forward to to have a fruitful discussion in this webinar.
Likewise. Thank you. And we have Mr. Simran Sharma joining us from here in Singapore, where I'm also located. Simran currently works at Standard Chartered Bank as the Director of Client Experience. Simran, you've worked in fintech, e-commerce, you were at Jabong, so you've got all-round experience in various industries. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Saurabh. You're too kind. I don't know how much of an all-round experience it is, but yeah, happy to contribute to the forum today. Thank you.
Look forward to speaking with you in a bit. And finally, we have Mr. Ronan Manse joining us from Bangkok. So we have Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia, and Ronan joining us from Thailand. Ronan is the Managing Director of AppsFlyer, which is one of our very close partners. And Ronan's been with the company about 7 to 8 years. Thank you for joining us, Ronan.
Thank you. Almost 7 to 8 years. Now it's 6.5, but who's counting?
Great to have you on board. Before we begin a conversation, Ronan sent me a slide yesterday, guys, whoever's on the call. And I personally liked it a lot. It shows how finance or the overall evolution of money, overall evolution of trading. I'm going to put it on the screen and let Ronan talk us through on his thoughts. I'll just share my screen in a second. Here we go. Ronan, over to you. What are we seeing here?
Cool. What a beautiful slide. Yeah, so I think just to set the stage for the discussion that we're about to have, I wanted to kind of preface this with the evolution of fintech, right? I think it's quite interesting how this whole space evolved, right? We're talking about going from basically bartering, right, which is like kind of exchanging chickens for a dirham, into what then became like the coin age, where metallurgy, payment, and store value. And then this actually, it led to the introduction of money, right? And money was actually was introduced in China by the Tang Dynasty, but it was actually really spread by the Mongolians, who were probably one of the earliest global traders. So moving forward, like money then in the 1967, actually the first ATM became available, and that's when money finally became electronic. We could actually access money through this machine, right? I'm sure most of you still use money. And what did this provide to us? It provided with us as humans, right, speed and liquidity. And then if we fast forward a little bit into 1995, that's when the first generation of internet banking was launched. And I'm sure some of us were actually part of this, first banking adopters, right? And this led to speed and convenience, where we could actually start doing stuff online without having to go to the counter. And it brings us to today, right? We're now in the age of digital currency, and where we see things like Bitcoin is becoming a commonly used vehicle for stored value. And so what is this all about? Why has this evolution happened? So I in my view, it's out of two things. One is out of speed, and one is about scope. So I think if we use this as a preface to this this webinar or discussion that we're going to have, right? I think that there's one thing that is become available that has not become available at any time in the past, and that is the data that you can harness now through all these transactions. So I hope that helps to give the audience a little bit of a history of fintech evolution, and let's jump into the discussion from here.
Anand, thank you for setting the context. That made a lot of sense. I'm an avid reader of history. I like the fact that you started with barter system. I have a 11-year-old nephew who has no idea what barter system is, so I had to give him an example recently that when you give your brother a chocolate and he helps you with your homework, that's kind of barter system. But eventually, as you grow older, you start charging people money for all the tuition and helping them, and that's where currency evolves. So thanks for putting context in the picture here for us to get started. I'll start off with one particular question that's recently been in the news. Not a question, just something big that happened in Southeast Asia last week. So 4 large digital banking licenses were approved. Grab is one of them in partnership with Singtel. And then we also have the SEA Group and Capital. How is that going to impact the future? Because if you look at Grab, they started as a taxi company and they are much larger than taxi, and now they've got a banking license. Let me start with Sheila, you first. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, so it's quite interesting news. So, when I was working before, I saw it right away on my feed because I was working for a Singtel company before coming in here. And I think definitely this is a trend that we're seeing not only for Singapore, but even in the Philippines. Recently, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, our central bank, had announced that they have finally approved a digital banks framework and have created a separate category for digital banks. So this is also a way for them to kind of fast forward, for the Philippines to have 50% digital transactions by 2023. It's quite ambitious because right now it's like 20% and our bank population is very, very low. I think before, when the year ended, only less than 30% of adults in the Philippines have a bank account. But because of this pandemic, which, maybe one of the positive things that came out is that a lot of the people started having to lean on the digital way of doing things, including digital banking. So many people opened, like 9 million people opened e-wallets and digital bank accounts just to receive the government assistance, actually, because a lot of people were displaced in terms of employment during this time. So I think that Singapore, which is a much more advanced market than the Philippines, having the four digital banks already goes to show the need, for end-to-end digital, basically digital finance. And I think that's a move that's going to halo into the other markets where digital banking is still not very prevalent. There's very low trust in the Philippines, low awareness, low trust. But when we see our more sophisticated counterparts doing this, and we have some initiatives also from local government, opening up digital banking as a great alternative to the brick and mortar business, then we see that it's really going to be able to drive the entire fintech, business forward.
Yeah, absolutely. The industries eventually are all connected. And if less than 30% Filipinos had access to core banking, and now they've started adopting digital bank, it's going to impact other industries as well.
Yeah,
I spent a lot of time in Manila, and I remember queuing up at a 7-Eleven once, just trying to buy a bottle of water, and I realized they don't accept cards. I either have to have a local app or I have to have cash. So I had to walk all the way to the ATM and come back, and there was no ATM sign anywhere. And it
or the
becomes very
ATM is
problematic.
offline, or the
Or
ATM
it's
is offline. Yeah.
The ATM's offline. So the digital is helping us move forward. You mentioned wallet there. Wallets can't work without integration into banking. We have a wallet genius here from AstraPay. Amar, over to you. What do you think is going to be the long-term impact of the pandemic, and then what the new licenses that have been granted?
Well, one thing for sure that whether we like it or not, right? Due to COVID pandemic situation, that everybody need to go digital, right? Because like the users cannot go to the banks, right? To make transaction or whatever. So basically, like what happens right now is based on statistic that Indonesia have 270 million population, and 150 million are using internet. But we need to know also that Indonesian, the unbankable are still huge, very huge. I mean, it's still above 50%. And as if the penetration of like say, e-money app is rising up for the past few months. But again, the way they want to top up, usually they go to a convenience store to top up their e-money. That's why, because they don't have any bank account to top up their e-money app. So basically, that's the one of the huge problem that we are facing now. That we need to make them, to create a bank account, which I believe digital banking could, could help the situation in the future. I believe so.
Yep. Makes sense. You mentioned customer experience there, and the typical experience we are used to, or at least I was used to, is going into a bank back in the day. If I needed to apply for a credit card, you'd go into a bank. And having grown up in India for a long time and moved out living in Australia, Singapore, I know banks, they're very customer service focused. You walk in and there's a concierge sometimes. You walk in, and if you're going for premium banking or you're going to apply for loan, they will have separate rooms for you to come and sit down with them, understand your financial requirements, etc. So in the digital space, how do you think companies would need to create that kind of experience? Probably more relevant for you, Simran, in customer experience for Standard Chartered.
Sure, sir. So I think I'll start firstly from your comment on the virtual bank. So I think at Standard Chartered, I think we are quite already on that path. So this year we launched our virtual bank in Hong Kong, which is called MoEngage. So that's something that we've already done in the region. In fact, we have fully digital banks in Africa as well, in some of the markets which we've launched. So I think Hong Kong was a bit of a front runner there in terms of when the regulator there allowed licenses and Singapore's is now followed suit as well. I think it's a great move from the regulators as well, because this is kind of their way of promoting innovation as well in the respective markets, and allowing bigger markets, bigger companies to get into it. So, and in terms of now, I think where we see the client experience, and because we've been part of the whole journey in Mox as well, it's definitely moving away from the physical brick and mortar and meeting people face to face kind of a thing. So I think now it's totally about how do you design that user journey within an app, or how do you kind of design it for somebody who's on the move. I think, and that's where everybody's moved on to. We do our, for example, we do our onboarding on Mox within a few seconds, and you have to simplify things. You have to make sure that it's intuitive. The earlier, the whole formal way of communicating that, especially that banks had, with our clients, I think that's going away now. It's becoming more how you would chat up with a friend. So that's how you kind of introduce your offerings, how you introduce them to the whole onboarding process, while still asking them for very important KYC details, like their whatever their national IDs, etc. So I think that's where I think it's a great UI UX is just a must now. I think it's just like something which is just your bread and butter. I think what is now becoming quite clear is that you need more differentiators on top of that. So having seamless client journeys, having a great UI UX is not enough, but yeah, you need more differentiators on top of that.
Yeah, 100%. I was just talking to someone on last weekend, and they're now building an inbuilt chat feature on the app itself. We started chat features on the website, but now there are technologies where if you're looking at a particular account or a service, right there you can start chats from within the app with an agent in the background, which is, I think, the next big wave. I don't know how that might tie up into WhatsApp and all. We'll see how that grows up. But yeah, just UX and UI is probably not the only way now. There's got to be more personalization, more segmentation. Thanks for that, Simran. That made a lot of sense. So what we see in all industries is a very hardcore segmentation. Even if you look at physical spaces, if you look at actual banks, you walk in and first question they ask is, what are you here for? Because they're segmenting you right away. Are you here to get cash? Are you here to get a bank statement? Are you here to deposit cash or apply for a loan or apply for a card, etc.? So if you remove physical banks from the picture altogether, I want to learn how would segmentation happen in the digital space for banks. Simran, do you want to take that one as well? And then we'll move over to Ronin.
Sure. I think segmentation it's definitely, I think there are multiple elements to it. One, of course, we still have the traditional kind of parameters that we have used, in terms of, for example, how do we do the segmentation earlier? You would look at the AUM, etc., of the client, and then you could kind of bracket them. Now, those lines are getting blurred for sure. I mean, you could have millennials who could be millionaires already, whether it's through generational wealth or they were I don't know, they made it big through in the startup world. Could be anything, right? So those lines are getting blurred for sure. There are definitely shorter attention spans, and I think something that's coming through is that people today are looking for banks which are fully integrated in their ecosystem, like how you mentioned Grab becoming a bank now, right? So it's been, I mean, we talk about super apps in China especially, right? So I think that's where we are moving. I think in terms of segmentation, I think what we especially in the bank are increasingly seeing is that you also now need to start looking at personas and what are the kind of people who are coming onto your platform. So those personas are not necessarily based only on the amount of money they have, but it is dependent on their aspirations in life, where do they want to go, how do they perceive a bank as, how do they perceive any other organization as, and you then design user journeys, our client journeys, depending on those personas. And we've even seen how a persona of somebody who's let's say less than 30 today, when they move on in life, how do the personas change, and how do they kind of move on to, let's say, when they are 40 plus, and they might have a family, or they've made it big in life, and now they want more security for the next generation. So how do those personas evolve? I think segmentation now has to be backed with the personas as well.
Yeah, makes sense. It's important to identify all the data points in the background, of course. Ronan, your view on this?
I was just when you mentioned segmentation, I thought about a couple things, but one was there's the banked, right, that we're talking about right now, because pretty much you look at Singapore and you look at Hong Kong. These are, I'm going to guess, 99% plus.
All banked.
Right.
Everybody's got a bank account.
Or multiple banks, right? Yep. And so that's one segment, right? And then you look at the other segment, which is the unbanked, right? The unbanked is the ones who've never done this before. And so, like, in order to actually address the segmentation, we have to look at what allows them actually to become banked in the digital, kind of in the digital world, right? And this means digital inclusion, right? This means access to mobile devices. And this also means like an identity system, right? Or does the identity system that currently exists need to be reformed to actually enable them? Because how many people don't even have proper IDs? I know in Indonesia, you still have to do like a face-to-face validation in order to open a digital bank account. Is that correct, Amar?
Yes, still doing it, even though, like, for example, one of the bank, I tried to create an account through their app, and afterwards, they will send me a link to have a video call actually. And then while in the video call, I need to show my ID, right? Just like this, just like having a selfie. So basically, we need to do that because that's one of the regulation created by our regulator. So basically, if we need to, evolve from that, I believe the regulator must change their regulation. So basically, it's going to be a long way.
Yeah. So I think there are those barriers. The other thing that I want to mention is that the other thought that I had was that actually money is almost started to become branded, right? Because we don't say I'm giving you Sing dollar or Hong Kong dollar. I'm going to use MoxPay, or I'm going to use GrabPay, or I'm going to use something, right? Or AstraPay. So it's funny how this is also starting to shift, that the segmentation is actually moving less away from like what we've typically seen as money, but we're actually calling money by the brand that it represents. So I think, firstly, I mean, marketers need to build up a very strong brand recognition and brand credibility, right? Obviously, going in as a bank, you have 100 years of foundation behind you, like Standard Chartered, that is able to bring that reputation into the digital space. Where the challenges for the new players into this space is, how do I build a trust? How do I build that trust? And then start to gain the repeated usage within this financial system, right? And I think that probably another thing that is we typically see is the challenge in there where there's markets that are a lot of wallets. It's retention, right? How do I keep this usage to be consistent? And there's a lot being done through partnerships right now. Again, like in Indonesia, like a petrol station has partnered with a wallet where you can only use that digital wallet to pay at that petrol station, right? And I'm sure there's many other such examples, but how do you incentivize repeat usage and actually what it's all about is creating the habit, right? Instead of reaching into our pocket to pull out cash, now we're reaching in and we've got to pick that app of choice to actually make that transaction. So, this is, I wish I had the answer, but I think, these are the challenges that marketers are going to face. And, but I think the ones that are actually able to challenge this are the ones that are really going to come out ahead in this fintech space.
If I were to add some thoughts on your thoughts, actually that's been kind of the thinking around, Home Credit is not a bank, we're a consumer finance company. And in the old model, the way that we interact with our customers is that we acquire them once they get a loan from us for the first time. And then we have no more relationship with them except for, asking them to pay us. And then maybe if they're good payers, like in 1 month, 1 year or 2 years, we'll offer them another loan. And so you don't actually get to build on any of the segmentation. I mean, for example, we have a segmentation where we know their age, their income, and it's just quite basic, and the risk profile, because then we develop that based on their paying behavior. But other than that, we don't have any further data on them because the interactions are just those maybe 1-2 interactions with them. So that's been the, that's been kind of the thinking that we've been doing in the last, year. And the products that we've been started to put in our catalog are basically products you can interact with on a daily basis, and we don't have to wait for you to come to us with a loan. We have other things for you to engage with, and that's how we know your behavior. That's how we get to know you better, and that's how we can properly put you in the right segmentation.
I love that, because it's about giving that first loan, right? It's the shift in how you think about the relationship that traditional banks have with consumers, and more forward thinking, right? One being give the loan and that's the end of the discussion, right? Or the other is give the loan and now we start working on the relationship. And this was the financial model, right?
Yeah, correct.
Exactly. End of the day, consumer wins. I think with the all the data that gets captured and all the new offers that go out, the consumer wins. You mentioned obviously consumer financing, core banking, Standard Chartered. When we look at wallets, the reliance on banks is heavy, and you mentioned, Amar, that there's this whole verification process in place, and a lot of people still don't have access to banking in Indonesia, Philippines. Sheila, is that a process in the Philippines as well? If somebody needs to open up a new bank account, they need to be verified, face verification?
That was the older process, but right now they've started to implement end-to-end, digital process where basically you just submit you take a selfie, you do a liveness test, and you have some proof of identification. It's the same way it's the same thing also that we're applying for our own verification purposes.
Okay, got it. Thank you. For everybody who's on the call listening to us, if you have any questions, please do put them on chat. We'd love to take your questions as well. Just keep putting them throughout. And as soon as I see something and if it's relevant, I will bring it up with our panel here today. Okay, moving on to the next question here, which we had from somebody before we planned this. So orchestrating personalized omni-channel user journey. When I say omni-channel, for the audience on the call, from a digital perspective, there's email, SMS, push notifications, there's inbox messages coming into the app. If you remove banking completely from the picture, physical banking, and you're looking at only digital, then these are the channels we are left. Now we're getting into communication via WhatsApp, Zalo, chat apps, etc. With all the neobanks coming into the picture, what are some of the challenges or pitfalls on your path from Home Credit perspective, Standard Chartered perspective, that you need to make sure that from a customer life cycle perspective, you're using the right channel? Would you guys start with email as an example, or if you launch an app, do you start with communicating via push notifications? Do you look at user behavior? Any challenges you've seen so far? Simran, probably start with you. The fact that you mentioned the Hong Kong business is already up and running from a digital perspective. Any learnings there?
Yeah, so I think So for I think where we need to start there is how do you define the user journey to begin with, right? So I think the whole concept about getting into digital banks has been that the traditional banks tend used to be very inward focused. They would look at a process rather than a journey. So it would be like, how do I get a task done? Okay, if a customer has come to me, is looking for a credit, he or she is looking for a credit card, let's say, then how do I make sure that I provide that credit card to that person? Whereas I think where it changes is that where we start looking at from a customer lens, that okay, if my need is lending today, okay, it could be a credit card, it could be a personal loan, so I need money. That's where we start from. Or I need money on a short-term basis, and so what do I do? So that's where you start from, I think, and that's where what we call it as the discover phase starts. That somebody comes up with the user need or the customer need is that I need money, short-term money in my pocket. How do I go about it? So that's where you start with the attention share as well. And that's when you kind of they land on your platform. And I think uh, the communication channels specifically which you were talking about have to be very robust to back it up. Like you mentioned, the live chat is, for example, is there. Then we've also in some of our markets we've been experimenting with chatbots as well. How does that kind of come into this place? What is that logical tipping point where you transition from something automated like a chatbot to actually a human? When you ensure that the customer journey remains seamless. So I think there's no one easy answer for that. I mean, I think everybody's learning as we move along, especially with banking. The products, sometimes you need to see how do you simplify them. Sometimes just the product itself can be a little bit intimidating for a person, especially if, example, if they're looking for, let's say, a short-term personal loan kind of a thing. So that's so it's I think it's a full package that you have to develop whenever you're building that kind of an omni-channel proposition.
Yep, absolutely. There's definitely technology in place that helps with that. We obviously do that kind of stuff. The right channel, the right message, the right time, but still the content piece is still missing. What kind of content needs to go out? What kind of content is going to make people click on the message? What is going to be interesting to them? Amar, your thoughts on omni-channel strategy? This is something you guys do quite heavily, actually.
Yeah. So basically, if you ask me, it's a tough job actually. Because you have like different kind of people, right? Different kind of users. The way they use our app is different from one person to another. And sometimes we use app push. Oh, it works, but only for this kind of people. And most likely, I thought that, oh, email will not work with this kind of type of people. But turns out, oh, if we send out the right message based on say if we send them the right message, the right content, the right promos, right? Oh, turns out they open up, they open the email. So basically, it's a tough job because it'll be like never-ending work. It's like a vicious circle, actually, right? Especially for the marketing team, because we need to uh, keep searching. Okay, what kind of promo, what kind of creative that we should have, and moving forward, right? So basically, especially the creative team, they need to create like multiple banners. Like every week, we are creating like tons of banners and creative. We are doing A/B testing here and there. So basically, um, it's a never-ending job, actually,
Never ends.
never-ending task.
Yeah, I think content is as important as technology here. Us
Exactly.
engineers can keep creating the tech, but somebody in the front end has to create the content and use the tech to enable that content.
Yeah,
There's a
sometimes.
question. Sorry, Aman, go on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, because like most of the people, right? Most of the people, they thought that, okay, you know what? I'm using AI. Sure, but AI needs, needs content, needs a human being who thinks about the strategy, how we, because AI will do things based on what we fit in, right? So basically, sometimes people tend to forget that, hey, we still do need people to, to feed those
Data
platform.
points.
Yes,
Yep.
data points. There you go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks. There's a question in the audience. I'll just read it out. And question is there any idea on successfully influencing clients to use new technology? The example this person has shared is looking at Grab or Taobao e-commerce. They've launched and influenced clients, and everyone is using it. So I think the question is, if you're launching a B2C business, um, how do you make it successful? Ronan, I think this is very appropriate for someone like you.
So firstly, if I had the answer, I'd probably be a billionaire. How to build a successful brand, right? You look at brands like Taobao and like Grab, and these are not overnight success, right? These are companies that have spent a long time to build trust and build relationship with consumers, right? And this takes time, right? But I think if we look at this, you have to be in any type of situation, and like as I mentioned in the beginning, that what fintech empowers is that there is a lot of access to data, right? And data enables you to make right decisions, or much more informed decisions than you would have otherwise, right? Data allows you to capture leading metrics instead of lagging metrics, right? Because if you're making a decision on what happened in the past, you might just replicate the same cycle that you are in, right? But if you look at what's happening in the future, and this is how you look at metrics that are, for example, influencers play a very, very important part in how brands are perceived. And imagine if you as a brand can customize your messaging and your marketing on a fly to match what the influencers are saying in the space, then you actually can build a message that resonates with the audience that you are targeting, right? And this sounds kind of like, well, that's pretty intense, right? But think about it. Like, it is a very, very intense competition out there in the fintech space, in any space, right? Even in a duopoly of Grab and Gojek in the ride-sharing space, the competition is intense, right? Absolutely. So I think that as marketers, if we use the traditional methodology and strategies of marketing and taking 6 months to plan a campaign, it's all too late, right? Because everything could have changed, and we see how things change so fast in our world right now. So I think we have to be very data driven, and I think we got to look at the leading metrics to help empower better decisions and informed decisions about how we market for the future.
Yep, absolutely. Completely agree with that. Very hard to find businesses that just become overnight success these days. It takes time, it takes a lot of effort. For me, it's all about value and working backwards from what value is for the consumer. That value could be convenience, it could be better commercials for the customer. The example here was Grab. And when Grab launched, it was mainly convenience. And then they competed heavily with local taxi companies on price as well. I remember flying into Manila and waiting at the airport for 30 minutes for a taxi. And then finally Grab launched. And then I would land and book a Grab. And by the time I'm out, Grab's there. So it's convenience. Even though it was more expensive, but it saved me 30 minutes. It's convenience. So it's an ongoing process, I think. And businesses need to keep looking at the data, leading indicators, like you mentioned, to continue innovating. Sheila, any contribution from you on this question?
Well, actually, this is an exercise that's like a challenge. Every marketer is presented with the same challenge, right? And the technique that I've been applying not only for this particular fintech industry, but in any other places, you have to develop this core loyal following. The marketeers have called them tribe or cult or something like that. Basically, these real believers in your product, and they're the ones that are going to be able to get the message to spread. That also means that it can't be, basically it's people who really believe in the product, not that you're paying them to believe in the product. They like it, they have a value, and then they can talk about it. And that's eventually that gets grows. When you hit critical mass, then that's when your business will basically grow.
Yep. Thank you. Simran used to work at an Indian e-commerce Jabong, so I'm really looking forward to Simran's answer as well.
Yeah, I think in Indian e-commerce, sort of, I think you'll be aware that a lot of it was just throw money at it, and something would work. But I think Ronan and both Sheila, I think, kind of nailed it. That you have to, and what you said as well. I think you have to start with what I was mentioning earlier, is that what is the user need that you're trying to solve for. Okay, that's where you start from. And like you said, convenience. It could be convenience. It could be, it could be a financial need as well. So that's what you start with. And I think when you work backwards from there. I think what we've learned, especially in the whole digital bank journey, is that you need constant iteration. Okay, so you need to be very nimble on your feet. For example, when we launched the whole digital bank proposition in Hong Kong, there was a challenge that what would be the onboarding time, right? And we've kind of actually broken our record 3 to 4 times already. And that's because the teams are very nimble. They meet every day to see what can we improve. I think that's the kind of culture that you need to build within the brand, and to make sure that you kind of are successful at what you're launching. So I think you have to be fast and nimble, and kind of keep reaching out to the clients to understand what's working and what's not working. I think in Jabong also, that was primarily what we did as well. Like I think there were some industry firsts that we did at that time. For example, cash on delivery. At least in India, it wasn't there. So Jabong was one of the front runners on that. Except something as simple as that the problem is that people are like, what was the consumer need that we were trying to solve was that people was scared at that point of time to pay money online and thinking, oh, will my product arrive or not, right?
Yeah.
So we solved it with cash on, right? So that was a need, and those were the kind of constant iterations that we kept doing. That what is stopping people from buying online? That was the consumer behavior that we were trying to change at that point of time, right? At least in the Indian market. And I think that's pretty much. I think there has to be a constant back and forth with the clients, which you then build into your inputs and to keep refining your product. I think that's pretty. I mean, I don't know if I'm oversimplifying it, but yeah, that's what we try to do.
Yes. Follow-up question there. You mentioned onboarding on a banking app within 2 minutes. This is the banking app in Hong Kong.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
A user could install the app and create a bank account within 2 minutes. Is that what you're telling us? So that's amazing. So they can have a bank account right away. Because I don't think that's even possible here in Singapore.
No, we've launched a credit card product there, but yeah, you can do that in 2 minutes. So basically, you get your number, you get an OTP. So your phone number stick. You take 2 pictures and a selfie. Like Sheila was mentioning, we kind of do a liveness check so that you avoid fraud there. You just provide your KYC information. You choose what name do you want to put. You choose what is your touch or face ID. You enable that, and that's it, and you're done.
Wow.
Most of this is Yeah, so that's the user journey, and most of these, I think majority of these accounts, I think would close to about 80% are immediately opened, unless you face any background compliance checks, right, which you need to investigate, which is true for any bank today, that you of course you don't want to onboard any shady characters as well. So if it merits investigation, then you go through it. Otherwise you have to make it as seamless as possible for the
Yeah,
users.
yeah, yeah, as quick as possible. So Amar, a question for you from a banking perspective. KYC, you said you got to do a video call, but in your organization, in fintech, pure fintech, how do you do KYC? Do you rely on a bank's data, or do you have your own process?
So basically, in terms of process, as I mentioned, like because finance, fintech is highly regulated industry, right? So basically, in terms of regulation, in terms of KYC, we only do take a picture of the ID, and then you take your ID with you and take a selfie on it, and then uh, you share it to you send it to the app, right? And then automatically in the background we will double check with our government data to check, okay, this ID matches with the name and the address, etc., and also the phone number. Then okay, usually it will only take like an hour the most, right? Afterwards, okay, for example, in Astra Pay, after you do KYC, you'll get upgraded to preferred account, which with preferred account you can do transfer, you can top up your e-money up to 10 million rupiahs, which is equals to what, $800 or more or less. Yeah, that's how we do it actually.
Got it. Got it. Thanks for sharing that. Moving on to machine learning. It's something I personally really enjoy, and I like seeing how machine learning is helping businesses evolve. I want to ask this to Sheila. So Sheila, would this be a machine learning example in the home loans industry? So let's say a 23-year-old applies for a loan for the first time, and they apply for amount X, and they're living in area X, Y, and would machine learning then kick in, and in 3 years' time kind of notify somebody in your sales team that this person might be ready for a credit card now or some other service? Or do you have human intervention there looking at this kind of data?
So actually, it's a combination of both right now. And right now, machine learning as well as human intervention are both, helping us, with risk, in collections, in developing offers. So based on what we learn and collect data on, and of course, even in advertising, it's also being done. We're able to, reach out beyond our ecosystem and offer it to similar profiles. So definitely, machine learning is super helpful for us, and makes it a more robust, a more robust product. We're able to design offers and offer it to the right person at the right time, at the right stage in their life. Yeah, so definitely it's there.
Great. And do you see that evolving, or do you see human intervention continuing to be a part of it? And from what you've seen in the past, where do you think we're heading?
I think it's going to, be for the places which we can already automate, the processes we can already automate. So, for example, with collections, we're already using voice bots. In customer support, we're already using chat bots. I think at the end of the day, we're not going to be able to, give up on human interaction, especially for our target segment, which is, well, number one, there's the language barrier, right? So there's still a lot of things that a machine may not be able to, especially pick up, especially at these early stages. And then, there's also the comfort of like, I cannot explain my problem to this machine. I will have to talk to someone so that they understand my situation. So I think we're not going to be able to let go of that. But for the very basic and simple on the handling people side, it's going to definitely go more towards, automated machine learning processes. And it's going to be a great help on us in, developing these, risk collection and product offers.
Got it.
But still humans are going to be able to design that at the very end, right? Using the data that they've collected. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like Amar said earlier, everything depends on data. Algorithms come in later. Okay, there's a question from the audience, if I may. I will start with Amar on this one, and then Simran and Ronan both need your input as well. Interesting question. How and at which stage of customer journey is chatbot being utilized, and how you maintain content knowledge of the chatbot? Anybody using chatbots in their business right now? Astrape?
For us, for now, still on the early stages. So basically, that's a very interesting question, actually. So, but I've run this chatbot function before, previously, before with Astra. Actually, with FEF, it's a Astra-owned company also for loans and financing. Um, okay, here's the tricky part, actually. The chatbot is, how I say this, not that um, not that smart, actually. But again, everybody mentioning that, oh, our chatbot is not that smart. And then, I try to take a look at it, again and again. Why the AI, doesn't learn anything so much? Turns out, you know what happened? When I checked, when I checked the data coming in, like people, chatting with our chatbot, 99.9% of out of all of the questions are asking about when will be my due date. 99%. So how can you expect our chatbot to become more, how I say this, more
Human-like.
exactly? If the question that's coming in from our customer are, keep asking the same questions. So basically, again, like Sheila also mentioned, right? The data needs to be provided to the AI to, for them to think, to analyze, and then they could create some sort of new action to intervene in the future. So basically, yeah, that will be my
I know.
answer.
I feel your pain. I think bots need to get much smarter very quick. I think bot companies need to catch up. There's a learning there. I've seen some smart bots, but they heavily rely on the data. A lot of configuration needed in the background. Simran, are you leveraging any chatbots at Standard Chartered Bank?
Sort of we are. We have it in a few markets. I think probably our most mature chatbot would probably be in Hong Kong again, but not for the digital bank, but that's for our the traditional bank that we've got already in Hong Kong. So the chatbot is called Stacy. And yeah, it's been there for a couple of years, but I'll totally echo, I think, Amar's thoughts there that it's a constant training process, right? So we are seeing it improve. Fortunately, we do have a more variety of questions that the bot gets, and we are using it to kind of keep retraining it and making it smarter. But I think to answer the question that was posted in the chat, we definitely there is a need to have that. It's, yes, we haven't perfected the technology, but I mentioned it earlier. You need to know what is that tipping point where you need to stop the chatbot and transition to a human for today at least, and that's what we're trying to do in our markets as well.
Got it. I personally still, I whenever I type something within a chat window, either an app or a website, I want the answer to be accurate. And you can always just tell there is a chatbot on the other side. And 9 times out of 10, you're not getting the answer you want. You're getting a pre-recorded sentence being thrown at you, and that doesn't serve the purpose. You still have to pick up the phone and call somebody, be it in any industry. That's what my experience has been. So they got to get smarter. Ronan, any examples from your life of chatbots?
I just migrated a device today, and as I swapped my banking over from one device to another, I saw that a question that I asked in the bank was still there unanswered. So I don't know if that was a bot or if that was a human, but no, it's definitely got ways to go, right? And I think with AI and ML, there's one thing that you need to have. It's a lot of data to be able to power them to become more intelligent. They just don't get smart like organically, right? It needs that data to be there. And I think probably one of the challenges that is going to be present in the for marketers in the future is marketing in a privacy-centric world, right? And how do we make sure that as marketers, we're adhering to the privacy of the consumer, right? These are going to be challenges, right? But once you gain permission, things are really amazing that you can do. But I think if you talk about engagement and chatbot, I'm sure, Saurabh, you have an alternative, right? With MoEngage and how you actually empower these brands to actually communicate with the consumer as well, right?
Yes, we obviously certainly do. Just not from a bot perspective, more from intelligent communication perspective. But we still let humans control the content that needs to go out. We haven't got the bot way yet. I think customer service angle is good from a bot perspective, but definitely not the onboarding process. The onboarding process needs to be very rigid and controlled. If that breaks down, the user will just walk away. Anything at Home Credit for you guys, Sheila, or at Hook, where you were working before?
In Home Credit, we're very, very early stages also of the chatbot and the voice bot.
Journey.
Yeah. So it's quite new, and like I said, challenging on language, and different dialects, talking to them, and even English, typed in these very, very abbreviated ways that the bot can't understand. So right now it's a very simple one. It's actually just kind of multiple choice type bot. Yeah.
Got it. We are only 2 minutes officially from shutting this down, but there's a couple more questions. Is that okay? If anybody in the audience wants to stay back, please feel free to. Ronan, Amar, Simran, is that okay? Sheila?
Yep, sure.
Okay. Thanks. Yep. So closing the bot conversation, I think if there's anybody who's super smart on this call and you want to build your own company and you think you can, I think building a smart chat bot is something that a few companies need to start exploring. I don't think we're there yet. There's a few companies out there, but nobody's managed to crack it. They're still in the early stages of where bots need to be. Okay, so Grab's already started giving away digital credit cards here. Apple's integrated Apple Pay into the right-hand side button of the phone. Any new tech innovations going on within your organizations which will revolutionize the fintech industry? I'll let you all four talk about it, and then we can probably wrap up. Home Credit, what's the next big thing you're doing for your consumers?
Secret.
Secret. Okay.
No, but actually, no. I will just maybe give a hint.
Yes.
That obviously it has to do with because we are a credit business, and we have been giving these 1-time, 2-time loans. So it's really about building the revolving credit. That's pretty much been our aim for the next year, basically.
Great. Ronan, I'll come to you right at the end because you're in the B2B business. Just like us. Simran, any next big things that you can publicly share, or any ideas you've seen in the market that you think are going to create the next big wave of transformation in BFSI?
Yeah, I think two probably things that I'll talk about, which were also topics of two panels that our retail bank had on the Singapore Fintech Festival, and I attended the panels yesterday. I think one is definitely on authentication. That since everything is becoming virtual, everything is digital, how do we improve our authentication? So I was part of this panel discussion yesterday, where I think what they were, some of the things that are being explored across the industry are, for example, even things like when you're filling in your details for, let's say, for onboarding, how tightly are you holding the phone? So they have parameters on that. So all the devices that are there, all the hardware that is there in the phone, in your phone, whether it's a gyrometer, an accelerometer, etc., everything is actually being used to now see, can they identify if you are the person who you claim you are to be. So your wrist force, etc., with how much force are you holding, checked while doing authentication. And I think the second topic that was very interesting is probably is what you were talking about, AI earlier, and then how do we ensure that we use AI responsibly, especially in banks. I think what are our ethical considerations towards our clients, and how do we make sure that what we are building today in terms of AI is not, for example, not leaving, for example, to pick up what Ronan was mentioning earlier, that we are not leaving the underbanked behind, for example. So how do we ensure that AI is being responsible? And yeah, of course, that we shouldn't build a next Terminator movie, right? So that too.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Much appreciated. Amar, over to you.
Next thing that we want to do. So basically, secret, just like Sheila mentioned. but personally, I told my team, right? I told the management, everybody in the company that, hey, I believe that we can do better, to outplay the existing e-money players. So basically, my thought was very simple. I said this to my to my bosses that, boss, I think we need to create an app so simple that even my mom, she is 72 years old, can use it without asking her son or even her grandchild how to use this. Because, like for example, she's using Gojek, GoPay, and those kind of stuff, right? For the first time, right? When she called me, like, Amar, how can I install this? After this, what should I do? And then how can I top up? How should I register? So basically, that's I spent like a week or so up until she knows how to utilize it. So basically, that was my thinking. How can we create an app that even a grandma can use it without asking their child? So that's my idea, basically. If anybody
That
in this webinar have the idea how to do so, do it, because it'll sell. If you can, if your grandma can use your app, I believe the everybody can use it.
Yeah, man, that's very appropriate and very reasonable. Um, we don't want to leave the generation out of the picture that created us. Fine, we've created digital, but we got to make their lives easier as well. For me, it was a shocker the day my mother sent me a WhatsApp message. I'm like, I can't believe you managed to install the app. This was a good 6-7 years ago, and now when I see her using all kinds of apps, placing food for orders for food, etc., like this wouldn't have been possible 10 years ago. So it's important that we look after them as well. Ronan, you work across many industries, in the banking, fintech, insurance industry. Where do you see us heading? Where do you see the next big opportunity? Of course, keeping the digital licenses in the picture.
Look, I think it like with any space, I believe that there'll be consolidation that will occur, right? The reason why licenses are issued is to add order to what would otherwise become chaos, right? And so I think that it's the ones who really build strong relationships with the consumer, have a very valuable product and proposition, as well as doing things that are against the traditional ways of banking or transport or shopping or whatever it is. I think those are the ones that will probably come out ahead. And I think probably one of my suggestions is to just look to the innovation that you see in China, because what's happening there can be 5 years ahead of where things are going right now. And there's a lot of insight that you can get on helping to shape the future of the consumer in Southeast Asia. Yeah, so.
Thank you. Guys, it's been a pleasure to host you.